Okay, so what are tokens and why do they matter? So tokens are extremely important to understand, at least a simplistic view, when you're dealing with generative AI. So a token is basically things like a word, like a punctuation, like a period or a full stop. Long words could be maybe broken into two tokens, and there's other stuff like emojis or stuff like that could be like one token. So here's an example. So this is like playing with my dog. That's like four words, as you can see. But this is actually 6 tokens, or it should be 6 tokens. Playing could be broken into two different tokens with my dog. So that'll be one token each. And then the period or full stop will be another token at the end. So that's how tokens are usually broken up. Now, why does this matter and how does it actually help? So basically, by AIs and generative AIs breaking things into tokens, it actually reads the information faster, reads the prompt or like the knowledge base you're giving it, reads it faster, it understands it better, so there's much less chance of it guessing or hallucinating, like giving you the wrong answer. Like, it's much better at that, and it actually responds faster because it doesn't have as much information to go through and everything. And of course, it costs less. Now, costing less is particularly important if you're building AI agent type of stuff for like a business application and so on. So particularly around stuff like support agents. So if your support agent is dealing with thousands of conversations or millions even of conversations, if your cost for each of those conversations is particularly high, it's not very efficient, especially at that scale of millions of conversations. So you want to be having you want to be using a model, because each of these models, depending on how good the model is, usually the better the model is, the more it actually costs. Each token actually costs more, and the worse a model is, or maybe sometimes the older a model is, the cheaper it is. So you want to be using a model here that's good enough to have the conversation, but it's not too good that you're basically not getting the added extra benefit. You might be paying the extra cost for the better model, but you're not getting any extra benefit. And obviously, when you're dealing with thousands or maybe even millions of conversations, these costs really add up. But if you're only dealing with a small number of conversations, like if you're only using a small number of tokens per conversation, it might only be a few cents or whatever. But as you can see, that costs a lot more if you're dealing with millions of conversations. So particularly important like with business or AI agent stuff for the costs. So prompt engineering and why that's important, especially like when you see all this. So this is the reason I will go into more prompt engineering in future videos, but the main reason prompt engineering is important, especially for business applications and all that, where this maybe prompt is being queried or asked multiple different times. So if you give the prompt the right context and like you really keep the prompt as concise as possible while asking the right stuff, this is the stuff it allows you to do. It allows the AI to read that prompt and also the knowledge base much faster, gives it a better understanding, less hallucinations, all that, responds faster, and costs less when you're building these applications. So that's another reason why prompt engineering is super important to actually understand this. And I think it'll be important like well into the future, because even if we don't necessarily have to give like in the future, maybe prompt engineering will actually get easier. But I think being able to prompt engineering and having that clarity in your mind to figure out the right prompt, even if in the future we're actually don't even have to type in our information or even talk. Maybe we'll just use brain implants to actually do our like prompt engineering. But anyway, I'm going ahead of myself. So yeah, that's why tokens matter. And chunking, we're going to go into a bit more about chunking. So basically, chunking is when the AI actually chunks down all the information you give it. The AI chunks that down into a certain amount of tokens. Now, a good average amount is oftentimes 500 tokens, but it depends. So it depends on the meaning, like maybe it depends on how the AI breaks that down. So maybe it'll break it down in the context, you don't want an AI always to be like, it's 500 tokens, and then it breaks a paragraph in half while it cuts out the meaning. So that'll end up having like worse answers for you with AI. So that's why it chunks down to maybe 500 tokens or maybe 800, 700. It usually depends on the size of the paragraph or the meaning of each paragraph. So depending on what way you actually chunk it down or what way you tell AI to chunk it down, yeah, it'll decide how many tokens to use per chunk. And that also, of course, does all this stuff as well.